This is Rachel Grant, and you're listening to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies.
Today, we're honored to have Rachel Grant join us on the show. Us Bond fans will remember her as peaceful fountains of desire in the James Bond movie Die Another Day.
I am Peaceful Fountains of Desire, the masseuse. I come with compliments of the manager.
I'm sure you do.
Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
From SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Rachel, we're so happy to have you join us here today.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. First of all, we were thrilled to meet you at the Gatherall event in New Jersey in August. And now, again, we're thrilled to be speaking with you here on our show. We want to talk to you about your work in the Bond movie, of course, Die Another Day. And we want to certainly get involved a little bit later in your charity work because you do some fantastic, wonderful things. And we want people to know about that.
Okay.
All right. So
fire away. Let's get talking then. What should we talk about?
let's get going. There you go. All right. Let's talk about your deal with Die Another Day. First of all.
Yes. Die Another Day. I was so lucky to be in the movie, and you know what? I feel more lucky now after 23 years actually, because it was March 2002 I filmed, and it's now so now it's like nearly February, so it's almost 23 years ago. And at the time I knew I was obviously doing something amazing and I loved it, but I had no idea that I would still be like living this Bond girl life. Really, I had no idea. And going to the Gatherall last August,
Yes,
really, really eye-opening. That was the first time since I'd been in a James Bond film, and I've attended lots of events and what have you, but I'd never been around real Bond fans. So it was a completely different experience for me, and I was completely blown away, and something clicked in me, and I was like, I totally get it now. Like I always got it before, like I got it in my own way.
yes.
And obviously I'm British, and being British, I've got like a really, really strong connection with James Bond. And then when I moved over the pond to this side of the world, I thought there were less Bond fans and less enthusiasm for like James Bond, but I was completely wrong. I actually feel it's stronger in many ways here. And then I travel all over the world, and I've met Bond fans in like France and even in China, but in other parts of the world that don't speak English, they don't know James Bond. Guess what they know it as? Like if I remember like Chinese people, I go to China quite a lot. So when I meet like in Chinese people in far-flung parts of the China, and they ask me about what I do and what have you, and then for some reason I always have to, they don't always understand, so I always bring up James Bond. They don't know the word James Bond. Everybody knows it as 007. So even when I was doing my adventures in the Amazon forest, and I met these tribal communities that literally wear nothing, and the women have their bosoms hanging out and the men have their other bits hanging out. They asked me what I did. I had a translator, and I mentioned James Bond, and they didn't know who James Bond. I was like, why would they know who James Bond is? But then when you mention 007, these people knew it. I was like shocked. Yeah, because
Yes.
every so often one or two people do emerge out of the forest and like mingle with other people. So over the years, I guess they know who that is. Anyway, you've got me on a roll now speaking.
Yeah.
So
That's a great story.
That
That's
is.
a great story.
So I feel really, really lucky. So
Yeah. How did you feel when you got the call to audition for a James Bond movie? Obviously, you grew up, as I understand, watching James Bond movies with your dad and so on, right?
yes, so in England, every Sunday or maybe Saturday afternoon, I don't remember, it's more maybe Sunday, they would always play Bond movies, always. There seemed to be so many of them.
Yes.
Even way back then, there was like a lot. And I remember my father would always have like a Bond movie on in the background on like a Saturday afternoon or something, or a Sunday. I remember they were always on, and we only had like 4 or 5 channels. So when you're flicking through, it's either James Bond or watching something else. And back in those days, because we were so limited in what we had to watch, lots of people watched it. So it
Yeah.
was actually quite good. It was quite fun. You know what I'm talking about, right? I mean,
Yes, yes.
yes, it was wonderful. And we also had like a series of movies called Carry On movies. I don't know if you know
Yes.
them,
Yes.
but I remember those movies too, and they had the same kind of like, it was more like slapstick kind of humor, and we were very used to that sort of thing in England. So I liked a little bit of, growing up, I liked a little bit of cheeky kind of um, script and what have you. And James Bond had a little bit of that, but obviously not like the Carry On films.
No.
It
Right,
was
right,
like
right.
brilliant lines and these larger than life characters, and I wanted to be a Bond girl. Why not? I saw the women as strong. They could
Yes.
fight James Bond. They had carried guns and what have you. Obviously, they were depicted in bikinis or lying in bed with Bond. But I think I didn't come away thinking ever that Bond was yeah, well, I did think he did sleep around quite a bit, but I never came away thinking that the women were weak.
Right.
If anything, I felt these movies from particularly the 60s, it was just they were ahead of their time. Women
Yes.
back in the 60s, early 60s, I remember my grandmother, she loved watching James Bond movies. And women my grandmother was a secretary, and they were depicted as like housewives and nurses and secretaries. And in the movies, they were damsels in distress, but not in a James Bond movie. So, it's changed obviously with the times, and there have been some really awkward moments in Bond movies. Actually, I have something to confess. So after the Gatherall in August, I was on a flight back from France. And now when you travel internationally, they have like a James Bond section. Isn't that great? I don't
Yes.
know if
Yeah.
you know that. They have this James Bond section. So I couldn't believe it had the James, they've got Die Another Day. And by the way, I just want to throw this in. When I went to the premiere of Die Another Day, and I was so scared to watch myself. I have this fear of watching myself. So I was so scared to watch myself. So when I came on screen in the premiere of Die Another Day, I completely hid my face and went, oh, and my mother was next to me. I was like, oh no, I can't watch it. I can't watch it. And I was just like, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over? And then suddenly when my mother told me it had ended, I was like, was I in it? And she said, yes.
Now you.
I was so nervous. I was so nervous about what if I wasn't in it? What if it was just like 1 second? But all I
Oh
remember
yeah.
was, yeah, I wasn't sure because,
You didn't
I've
know.
done roles before where they've been massive scenes, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, is that it? So I actually expected this to be really, really short and quick, and
Mm.
wasn't quite. And I was shocked. I was like, oh, there was actually one movie I did, and I had a really good scene with Lucas Haas, and I was cut out of the movie. He was the little boy in Witness, and I went to the premiere, and they invited me. I'm like, oh, you invited me, but I'm not in it. But yeah, there was a whole chunk of the movie that was cut out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It
yeah,
happens.
so
Yeah.
I was really, really excited. Anyway, going back to being on an international flight, I decided to watch for the first time Goldfinger.
Huh?
Yeah, that was
Wow.
my first
Well,
watch.
you hadn't seen that yet. Wow.
Wow.
If I had, and I think I probably had, but years ago, I would have been so small, like 6, 7 years old, and I don't,
Yeah.
or it's just in the background. I'm not really understanding what's going on. Although I don't think I would have been really allowed to watch that. But there, Honor Blackman in it, who, by the way,
Yes.
I met once.
Nice.
Oh, she's
When I was
fantastic.
ripping tickets when I was 19 years old on Notting Hill Gate Coronet Cinema. She looked pretty good, actually, I remember. She looks
You did.
fantastic in that movie. And
Yes.
I learned that she's older than Bond in that movie, right, James
Right.
Connery, which I thought was great. And she's great. She's like a strong woman. She
Yes.
all the women are pilots on this
Yes.
and but there was a couple of awkward bits when he kind of forced himself on her.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. There were.
There's a bit where he says something to a girl and then slaps her bottom, and there's a bit of like a.
Man talk.
This was the time. We have to remember when was this?
Right.
And I
64.
remember my grandmother would say, obviously, you don't try and kiss a man and blah blah blah. You get married, and so I'm, so we've obviously moved on with the times, but it's fascinating to look back actually at the history of cinema and James Bond, and use James Bond as like an example of something that's really transformed and evolved over the years. It is absolutely amazing. And then I remember when I was ripping tickets, I had a side job while I was at college in London, and it was ripping tickets at cinemas because I love to watch movies. And I remember when GoldenEye came out in London at a movie theatre, and I remember when it came out, and Judi Dench was
Yes.
M. And there you go. You have another strong female character who's Bond's boss.
She
So
was great.
Oh, she's great.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how it's moved with the times, all these different, all the women, and
Yeah. They
um,
were one of the first ones to put in very strong women. I mean, you look at Thunderball with Luciana Paluzzi played Fiona Volpe. We interviewed her in December. She was a delight to talk to too. She was a very, very strong woman. So
yeah,
The Bond franchise, they were one of the early ones to put in very strong women in movies.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a lot of the movies back in the 60s, all damsels in distress. I never wanted to
Yeah.
be one of those, though. Oh, I came away with quite a good impression of Bond women, Bond girls back then. I remember also, I haven't seen it for years, but I do remember Grace Jones.
Hmm.
She, I think she got in bed with Bond too.
Yep,
Because
she did.
she did, didn't she? Oh, I used to think, oh my goodness.
Her character did. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, her
Yeah.
character was Mayday, Mayday. That's
Yes.
Mayday. But I remember that a lot of these women, and like the same for Pussy Galore, they end up helping Bond at the end and saving the day.
Yes.
So that's those bits are lovely too. But that's been 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know the years are flying by.
I know.
So you got the call. Hey, we want you to be audition for the Bond
Yes, after
movie.
that question, and I waffled on.
No,
Yes.
did they tell you? Did they tell you what the role was at the time?
No, so here was my dilemma. So I got the call from one of my agents. It wasn't my main agent. It was an agent, believe it or not, called Oriental Casting. I know you
Okay.
can't really use that word anymore, use it in America, but
Right.
I used it growing up, and it was one that I like to use a lot. And my agent was called Oriental Casting. So whenever I got a call from Oriental Casting, I knew it was for an Oriental role. So it's for James Bond. And I kind of just sighed a little bit because I always struggled with getting Asian roles, like full Oriental girl roles, because I'm half Filipino
Yes.
and my mother has Spanish in her too. So I'd always like got close, and then I put so much effort and work, and it never really happened for me. So
Mhm.
I wasn't really like, oh, I'm gonna get this job. I wasn't, when you get a call, you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna do my best to get this job. So when I got this call, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do my best to make them remember me for another one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I
Forget this one. Remember me for the next one.
Yes, I know, exactly. Or for another role or anything.
Yeah, sure.
I actually had been seen by the James Bond casting people for Tomorrow Never Dies. I
Yeah,
went
you
in for initial casting when I think I was 17,
okay.
17 or something. I wasn't really ready I was still at school, which was strange. And I remember going to this casting. It was literally a preliminary casting. They didn't even, I think I might have said a few lines, but it was for Michelle Yeoh's role. Think about that.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
wow.
And then they ended up getting, oh, she's another strong character.
Yes.
So
Yes, yes. Yeah, she's terrific.
amazing. And they got like a great actress and martial artist for that. Anyway, so I had been seen before. I don't know if they remembered me or not. I'm not sure. Maybe I really don't know. So anyway, I was being seen for this. I got a call on, I think it was Wednesday. I auditioned the following day on a Thursday. It wasn't in a casting suite. It was at Eon Productions, which was their office. And I don't really do this so much in an audition, but I was determined for them to remember me. So I brought my nunchuckers and my martial arts kit along with me. And I walked in and I literally unzipped it. And before she could say anything, I'm like, hey, did this, by the
I
way.
love
And
it.
she was doing that because I had had so much bad luck with being cast as anything Chinese, as anything Filipino, Japanese. I'd been sent for those auditions quite a lot. And once in a while it happened for me, but it had to be, I'm not sure what,
Yeah.
they make me, or I have to be in costume, then I could look more of the part anyway. So I told them, hey, look, I do this. And she was so nice. And she said, oh, my goodness, well, we have to get this on film, hadn't we? So I was like, oh, yes. And I was wearing a Chinese dress, by the way.
Ah,
I had to wear a Chinese dress. I knew that if I just wore normal clothes or even just a normal dress, it would be hard for me to look the part. So I put on a Chinese dress. I actually still have that Chinese dress and I can still get into it. Yay.
Very good.
yay.
I meant to wear it for this. I have not worn it for anything since. It was my audition dress.
Yeah.
Every so often I pack a bag of stuff and give it to charity. I do it once a month. And that once when I was going through my old clothes, I was like, oh my goodness, this is the James Bond audition dress. I can't get rid of it.
I
Anyway,
gotta keep this.
yeah, so I used the nunchuckers in the audition and she got it on video.
Because you have training in the martial arts, right? You
So I didn't train with it growing up, and I want to say
yes?
that because I'm not like I know martial artists, and a lot of them have been doing it their whole life, and they're very, very specialized and specific with what they do.
Yes.
I did a show, I had training in dance and ballet. So I can kick my leg up high, I'm flexible, I can move, and martial art is like a dance.
Yes.
So I did do a show on BBC One once called Masters of Combat, and I was the female master. So I actually got into martial arts off the back of being cast in a BBC martial arts show. And
Yeah.
then from that, I decided to continue with it because I realized there was value to having it in as an actor. So yes, I did my martial arts demonstration and then I recorded my lines and that was that. I left. I didn't think too much of it. And then on the Saturday morning, I got a call. So I auditioned for it on the Thursday. I got a call on Saturday morning to say I'd got the job. It wasn't even they want to see you again. That's what would usually happen. Or you've been put on hold. Or
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't that at all. It's like you've got the job Monday morning, 6:30 a.m. Somebody's picking you up and driving you to the 007 stage. And I'm like,
Wow.
That's
That's awesome.
fantastic. See?
I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, okay, hold on a second. We've been here before. So anyway, yeah.
Now I'm going to go a place that I'm not sure you remember this, but
Yes.
in the 2009 series Star Hike, you played
yeah.
Lieutenant Commander Woof.
Yes.
And in episode 3, which was called Kill Jill, you actually take your bra off and use it like it's nunchucks.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that, but it was like, okay, I knew you had done the nunchucks for your audition, and then I see it here, but with a bra instead of with the actual nunchuck thing. So I
think
thought that was pretty cool.
I do remember now that I kind of like whipped it out, didn't I?
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously, it's a comedy, so
Yes.
and it's British, and it was a little So
I thought it was hilarious. I loved it.
I suppose
Yeah, it
so.
was good.
And then do I end up doing something? I mean, it doesn't make a really very good weapon because it doesn't have a weight at the end.
No.
Yeah,
Unless I'm
right.
using it to strangle somebody.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
I wasn't sure if you had weighted the end of it a little to make it a little easier to use or not.
no,
Okay.
actually not. It literally was. I just had it unstrapped and I just went,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
That's
All right. So
So
now,
sorry, that was a little bit out there, but I did when I was watching that series and I saw that episode. I'm like, wow, she used the nunchuckers in her audition.
Yeah,
So now
right.
now she's pulling them out here. So that's great.
All right. So your peaceful fountains of desire. You knew the role. You knew your name, right? They told you
They
what.
didn't hide anything there.
Okay.
Oh, that was another thing as well about something I didn't mention about the audition. Did I have email back then? I'm just trying to think. I think I did, yes. I had email, but I didn't get, I wasn't getting sent scripts and lines via email at all. It wasn't that stage. It literally was. I remember when I got the call, you're auditioning for a James Bond film. They never send out script or anything, or they never. Remember I'd get faxes back then. That's weird, right? I had a fax machine. Isn't that
Yeah,
strange?
yeah.
Anyway, I remember only seeing the script like literally before I went into the audition room. So it was quite unusual. I remember having to hold the piece of paper as I was auditioning. And usually you're off book. Usually you try and learn it as much as possible. But I
Yeah.
remember holding it. And then I just remember when I walked away with it, like they were like,
They're very careful with their scripts. I was going to say,
like,
yeah, they're.
and I was like, we weren't supposed. He had to sign, but we wouldn't say anything. I would have had a mobile phone, but I don't think it had a camera on it. So
Right.
these are the days where I wasn't really taking pictures and what have you. But I do remember it was that name, Peaceful Fountains of Desire.
Yeah.
It pretty much was exactly as it was written in the script. Nothing was really changed. And that was that. And so when I went on the Monday, it was really for a fitting and to meet people. And we walked around on set, we practiced it. And Pierce Brosnan was really very, very nice.
Nice.
Gave me time of day. Like you wouldn't believe, you would not think he was this big superstar. And at the time he really was. I mean, he still is, but he was James Bond.
Yes.
Absolutely had time to talk to me on set, not a problem. And then I spent 2.5 days with him, basically 3 days.
Wow.
And in between takes, setting up different takes, it was a lot more. It was a lot longer, the film time, than I ever imagined.
Sure.
And it was never a case of me walking. I was quite surprised with how big the set was. For some reason, I had in my head it would be this little room, but it wasn't. It was like a suite, obviously.
They
And
do a good job with sets.
yeah, he had me walking all the way. Lee Tomahori, the director, he had me walking all the way from the door, backwards and forwards, and they set up the camera looking at me, and then they did it, and they set it behind me in different angles, and I was quite surprised how much time they were giving over this little scene that I thought was yes. And then the time where he smashes the mirror with an ashtray.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And is it Mr. Chan or Chan? Mr. Chan comes out, the manager of the
Yep.
hotel. And even that took a long time because I had to be in the background for the entire duration of that bit.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
did the smashing of the mirror 3 times.
Jeez.
So that
Wow.
required a whole clear up bit. But every time we had to redo each take or change the setup, I had a body double.
Oh, jeez.
I had a body double. They would tell me, "Oh, I can sit down or go to my room," and they'll call me. I was like, "No, I'm just going to stay here." I'm not moving. So it was, yeah. So my double never really was used.
Yeah.
Well, that's intriguing to me because the scene where they cut into when he grabs the gun off your thigh,
Yes.
many times when you don't see the actor's face, they've brought in a double.
No,
But
so
my understanding, that was you, right?
yes, they were my legs and
Yes.
the hand coming in and out. So Pierce actually wanted to do that.
I can't blame him.
Yeah, he like having it was, it's fun to act, that's why we call them plays and things. It's lots of fun. And he was really into it. And I think, I was just really happy and enjoying it. And, I think he's just like a normal, it was just great. He was so good with me. It was amazing. And, he did it a couple of times, but then I think when they went really close in, they brought his body double. And by the way, his body double, up until this day, I'm still connected with him on Facebook. Have you ever interviewed him? You should interview him.
No, we haven't.
No.
He is so nice. He
Okay.
still works with Pierce Brosnan. He's Pierce Brosnan's body double. He's the one that did the hand, and I'm pretty sure it might be Pierce's hand, but I think it's probably his hand. He
Okay.
worked with Pierce. He must have a lot of stories. He's a very nice guy. Super.
Find him.
Yeah, he looks like Pierce particularly from like the back and the side.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a fun guy. I remember him. Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you have to do anything special to prepare for your role? And were there some instances, some things, some stories you could tell that were going on? I know the set was fantastic, and there are other little side stories and things that were going on that most people wouldn't know about, but would love to hear.
You know, there was so little time really to, well, obviously I didn't have any script and things, so
No.
that was probably better. But the way I prepared myself beforehand was I prepared myself mentally. I was like, God, what am I? I'd never really, you know, I had worked with Angelina Jolie. I was her body double on
Oh,
Raider 1. And funnily enough, Lindy Hemming, who was the costume designer on Die Another Day and on Pierce's, I think she might still be the costume designer, I'm not sure. For Die Another Day. She was working with me on clothing and costume for Tomb Raider. I only did 10 days on it. I got like other work and I kind of ditched the body double job. But it was really nice to be on Pinewood Studios and to get in Pinewood Studios for Tomb Raider and get that experience of being on a big set. So I
yes.
remember, oh, what is it going to be like being on the 007 set with James Bond, and like it almost was like a dream come true, or like a dream. So I just remember thinking, just saying to myself, it's going to be okay, it's going to be, you're not going to be nervous, you're not going to be nervous. And you've prepared years for this, you've prepared years, you've been on stage, you've done this so many times, it's no different, these are normal human beings, they're like you, they're like, right, they're normal human beings, it's a normal thing. And I rose to the occasion very easy. I handled it like any other job, basically. It was no different to me walking onto really, I'm not joking. The feeling inside, which is good because that's your level of professionalism, I guess, when you're in a situation doing a student film and
Yeah.
being on a Bond set. I'm not saying that they're the same. I'm just saying that the way I treated it as a professional actor, it just all seemed to flow and I was ready for it. So
Yeah.
but I had to like tell myself beforehand because I was getting a bit nervous. But nerves can be really good. I've always managed to use those nerves to kind of like give me that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yep.
work. So that adrenaline. So I did have to prepare. So when I got there, it was funny because I had this, he was much older. He was an acting coach, or he was a voice coach. And he came along to my room. He was an older gentleman. I loved working with him. I'm like, this is so cool. I've got a voice coach. I've got an acting coach before I go. So it was nice because I wanted somebody to work with the lines, because I was like saying them to myself. And he said to me, we need you quite, I think I had slight London accent in those days. I was living in London. So he said, we just want to kind of I just want to kind of smooth down a little bit of that London there. And he made me yeah, we just did it. I mean, I can do very posh, absolutely. I can. My grandmother was spoke very beautifully, and we all went to elocution classes, so it wasn't really a problem. So he was able to get me to say peaceful fountains of desire the way he wanted me to say. That was one
Hey, that
It
sounded good.
worked. It worked.
really nice. Yeah, so it was just so professional. It was really good. And yeah. And then I remember one time when I came out of the dressing room. Oh, this is so stupid. I came out the dressing room, and at the same time, I was coming out my dressing room. So Pierce brought, it was like a hallway outside. I came out of my dressing room. It's not a dressing room, it was just my room, which
Yeah.
had a shower and what have you. And I ate my food there by my lonesome, you know. Uh,
Oh.
so I ate my breakfast and lunch, and I think one day it was even dinner, because we went quite late. And I remember Halle Berry had a scene that she had to do, and she was sent home because I was still on set. No, I felt really bad about that. Anyway, one time I came out of the dressing room, and Pierce Brosnan was coming down the hallway, and if just for a moment I was like, I can feel myself. Gosh, I just felt myself in that moment. I felt myself go red and blush. I felt myself blush, and I literally was about to go back in to the dressing room because I was so shy. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And then he spoke to me, and I'm like, and then that was it. He broke the ice. I was like, oh yeah, I can't remember what he said. I really can't. But it was something, it was so funny. So we actually had a little bit of banter, just me and him in the hallway, and he went into his dressing room, and then I went along my way.
Uh,
Very nice.
that's
Well, like you
great.
say, you said he's a really nice guy, and we hear that from other actors as well, or actually
Yeah.
other people involved with his shows. And so it's really good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, now we talked about your costuming. You obviously you had that special rose color Asian looking dress on in the movie, which looked fantastic on you. And when we met you at Gatherall, you had pretty much the same dress on, I
I
think.
did. It was
Right.
exactly the it was exactly the same
Wow. Yeah.
make.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The design, it's this Chinese designer called Shanghai Tai. I think they're
Okay.
Hong Kong, well, Shanghai maybe originally. Um, but there used to be a big store on Bond, not Bond Street. I've got Bond, James Bond in my mouth. Used to be a big store on Regent, I think, believe it's Regent Street in London. So after filming Die Another Day, I actually decided to go to that store because I wanted to see the dresses. There were three dresses, three different colors that Lindy Hemming bought for me to try on. So I remember looking at them and I wanted to, they were like 1,500 pounds each.
Wow.
Wow.
They
Wow.
were silk, they're silk, and they were lovely. And she bought a really big size for me actually, because I'm quite big, I'm quite broad, you know. She bought a really big size for me, Lindy Hemming, and then she tailored it and cut it down,
Wow.
fit me. So it was beautifully fitted on me. So I still
Yes.
need to fit the dress that I got. I found it in a thrift shop, would you believe it? I've been looking for the dress for 22 years.
Wow.
Found it in a thrift shop. So I do need to tailor it a little bit, but I didn't have time to do it before Gatherall. You know, I didn't even know I was going to wear it that day. I was getting ready for Gatherall, going, what shall I wear? And I was going to wear a Chinese dress. I have lots of them. And then when I was looking through my dresses, I was like, oh, I just wear this? Oh
Yeah.
no, I can't. I said,
It worked.
I know it's
Yeah.
way too much. That means I have to like do the whole hair and do the shoes, find the right shoes. I can't remember what shoes I, oh yeah, wear the shoes, and I have to do everything. And then get a gun, and I didn't have a gun. And I actually remember looking in my gun stash. I have like fake plastic guns. There wasn't one that was suitable at all. And then I just thought, let me bring it with me and I'll decide when I get there. So I
Yeah.
really decided when I arrived. I saw there was a lot of people. And then I remembered, you know, I'm raising money for charity. So
Yeah.
every photo that I get signed and every picture that someone takes with me, um, I'll get $20. And if I can raise, I was hoping to raise like $300 or $400.
Yeah.
That was, I meant to be there for like 2 hours, and it was to go to, the money was goes towards these feeding programs I do in the Philippines for special needs children who come from very, very poor, underprivileged backgrounds. Like I walk through these neighborhoods, I take pictures. The last neighborhood I walked through that was really such a poor community. I didn't even have the heart to share the pictures on social media, and usually I would, but I just couldn't believe how these people were living, and I really didn't want to show it, which is very odd for me, really, because you know it's a way to raise money, but I just thought it was too much. So it's just an
Yeah.
example of, you know, I get to see where people live and children and how they grow up. And so I had this mission to raise funds to go towards the projects I work on in the Philippines. I was born there, so I feel very attached to the country.
Yes.
So when I went to Gatherall, I was like, you know what? When I arrived, I was like, let me wear the dress. It might just raise a bit more money. I might get an extra like 4 or 5 pictures out of it. And I really wasn't thinking money because I really don't like to, I'd sign all these pictures for free for everyone, you know,
Yeah.
but it can't be really be done. And so I put the dress on, did the interview with David
Yeah.
Zaritsky.
Yeah. He's a great guy.
Then he had a little thing set up for me to sign pictures.
Yeah.
And I had my little stash of pictures. And you know what? I was there until midnight.
You were.
Yeah, I know. We were there too. We saw you.
Oh, yes, I saw you
You were
outside
signing
at the
pictures all
end.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was signing, I couldn't believe it. And I had a 3-year-old waiting for me at home. So I
Oh.
just, I wanted to be home to put it to bed. And so I just carried on doing it.
Yeah.
On my feet the whole night. And you know what? I did not lose any energy and I would have kept on going and going. And the only reason why I stopped, well, I ran out of pictures for one.
Wow.
I ran out of me and James Bond photos within like 2 hours. And then I just ended up signing the single solo shot of Peaceful Fountains of Desire. And then till I ran out of them. So that was it.
Yeah.
And by the end of the
Fantastic.
evening, I'd raised $2,000.
Fantastic.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I'm doing them continually. So it was enough money to raise for feeding programs for an entire year for this one particular special
Wow.
needs
Wow.
classroom.
That was
Because
awesome.
the feeding
That-
program is just $40. That's how far that money can go. And
Wow.
it feeds 40 children.
Good for
Well,
you.
I have to say that when I heard that you were there and you were signing and you were collecting money for charity, I was like, that was fantastic. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't see that, right? So it was really nice that you did it that way.
Yeah, it was. It was terrific. And the dress choice was terrific because you look great in the movie in that dress and you look great in person in that dress.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all too. So
Yes.
That was that was the first time I bought it at the thrift shop and then I tried it on, but I didn't really like put heels on it. I put my hair up. So that was literally the first time I was being in the shoes of Peaceful Fountains. But somebody did ask me a question if I, in the, somebody asked me in the audience for the Q&A if I had the gun on me. I really wish I did, but I didn't.
It's
I remember when that gun went on sale at, I think it was Christie's in London. There was a special sale for for movie memorabilia and what have you. And
Mhm.
somebody who bought the gun, I didn't even know it was going on for sale. I wish it did because I would have bought it.
Oh yeah.
I think it went for £5,500 or something, which is around $7,000. But that was way back when. But it got lost, The person that bought it, I know. I feel terrible about it. Not because obviously, but I feel because I know the Bond fans love. Yeah, the person was a big Bond fan and collector, and he had a few bits and pieces. It got stolen and it got trashed in a field.
Oh,
I know, but it got right. I know. So, anyway,
yeah, that's too bad.
they
And
should.
things like that happen, It's like,
I know. I should make another one. I should. I did try and find one on after Gatherall. I was so like enthusiastic about finding a replica gun because it was a real gun, by the way.
yeah. Wow.
I couldn't find one on eBay.
Hmm.
One day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was a terrific scene in the movie. You did a great job in the movie. We loved that scene. I mean, really, it's the roles like you had in that movie that make the movie rich and enticing because the stars are the stars, Pierce and whatever, they're okay. But it's the people surrounding them that make it the movie, that make it rich. And you added to that in a great way. That was awesome. You were terrific. It
Yeah,
was great.
it is quite, wearing that fuchsia dress, that color, and it pops.
That was a good color.
Very memorable, and it's classic James Bond. Girl knocks on the door. He's in this pink popping dress, and it's a bedroom, and the dialogue is actually fantastic.
yes.
I was just going to say the lines were
I'm not that kind of
spot on.
masseuse.
You can read into them a bit more too.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
I am Peaceful Fountains of Desire, the masseuse. I come with compliments of the manager. On the bed, please. Face down.
the voice
What,
coach.
what do you say? Don't you say when you say I come with the compliments of
Yeah, the voice
the
coach said to me, all this is like, think about what you're saying as you're walking into the bedroom. I know. So he was saying, I was like, really? Wow. Yeah, I know.
But one thing I really liked is as you're leaving and you're not going to be able to massage James Bond. The look on your face was kind of disappointment. I mean, I knew you were there, you were really there as an agent or whatever, but
Right.
the look on your face was just like, oh, I really
think I
wanted
know
to
what
do
you
this.
mean. Yes, yes. Lee Tamahori's quite a good director, actually. Well, for me, working with him as an actor, he really gave me like little notes here and there. That said, little notes here and there. And I remember we did me knocking on the door and he opens the door. We did that 3 or 4 times, and it was very serious. And then on my last take, he said something in my ear, and then I can't remember what he said, but all I remember thinking was, oh, in that case, I need to smile. So smiled. I smiled, and Lee said, we might just use that one.
Yeah,
And so they did. I never smiled on any of the other takes, and
Yeah.
that's the take that he used.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good entrance. That was a
it
great,
was.
great, great
Because if I need
dialogue.
smiling, because a masseuse, I don't know, a masseuse would be, I was supposed to be very professional, and no, but she's smiling at the door. She's
Well,
friendly.
you can be a pleasant masseuse and be a
As I
masseuse,
could.
right? So,
But I wonder what would have happened.
And even the name Peaceful Fountains of Desire, I mean, you could read a lot into that.
No,
Every word,
there's some
really.
double or triple entendres in that. Come on.
there's so many different things going on. And yeah,
Yeah.
oh goodness me. I know. Yeah.
That's good.
So, as you've seen the evolution of Bond,
Yes.
and we're getting ready to have a new James Bond actor.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Is there any characteristic you want to see in the next James Bond?
Oh. That's quite a loaded question.
It is.
Hard.
And
Oh,
and the best thing is I can cut it if you want.
no, that's all right. I haven't, I haven't read any James Bond movies. But people always would say to me, like people that had read Bond movies, there are certain things about James Bond that we don't see anymore. They need to go. This was before people would tell me this.
Yeah.
You look at some of his James Bond, Ian Fleming's earlier, his works that he wrote about Bond. You really get to understand who Bond was. So I have often wanted to read some of the Bond novels. I've never
They're
read
fantastic.
really.
They're good.
I've never really read one. And somebody many, many years ago, like 20, oh, I think just as I was doing James Bond, he said to me, he was a Bond fan. He said to him, his favorite Bond, who was closest to Ian Fleming's Bond, was Timothy Dalton.
Yeah,
Yes.
Timothy Dalton.
Yep.
Yes,
Tim-
is that so?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Timothy Dalton read all of the Ian Fleming novels before he took on the role. And he was, I think, the most authentic
Wow.
Bond
Well, he
So,
wanted to
regarding
be
Ian
too.
Fleming.
So, yeah.
So I would like to see the Ian Fleming's James Bond.
Yes.
So that's how, so I don't, that's what I would like to see. I'd like to know
Yeah.
what's going on in his mind, really, because obviously each actor gives it, they're all picked for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been to Goldeneye, where Ian Fleming lived. And so I got a little bit interested in him. And they have a lot of his old pictures there, and
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with his houseboy, who I believe he's still alive. But I did go to Goldeneye. I must have gone to Goldeneye like 14 years ago. It's in Jamaica,
Right.
Yeah.
and I was very lucky to stay there. And I travel write occasionally. So I was writing for a magazine, and I did a wonderful spread on Jamaica and visiting Goldeneye. And I learned so much about Ian Fleming and all the different books he wrote. He really, and I'm a bit like Ian Fleming in that, I love, he wrote a book called Thrilling Cities. I love travel and adventure and all exotic people. And, I have a little bit of him in me. And I could say I'm a real life Bond girl, right? Bond woman. I love what Ian Fleming, I get what he was, I love that, what he wanted in his, that's that spice of life. So and I love that the last book that he wrote apparently was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang
Yep.
as
Yeah.
well. I love that movie. So I love that movie growing up. But you can see that all the James Bond stuff is there. You know, the girl in it is called Truly Scrumptious. That's how
Right.
Yeah.
Truly Scrumptious. So that's a Bond girl's name. Then they've got a flying car and everything.
Yeah.
So I love that was my first really, I guess, Bond film I ever really saw, Ian Fleming movie. But
Ian Productions is remaking that movie now.
oh really?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So
Oh,
because it's a Fleming novel, they own the rights to the Fleming stuff. So they're going to remake the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
is it going to be a musical?
Yeah.
I
don't know.
don't I
I
don't
don't know
the
anything
answer.
about it. Of course, we're not going to tell you anything. But
Yeah, and one of the things that I had read was that movie was going to be a test because after Amazon
mm,
bought the rights to everything, Eon still controls Bond, and that this was going to be the first big movie they did with Amazon to see how it was going to go when they decided to do the next Bond movie.
yeah, because
What
so far it hasn't gone well.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so nice. Oh, but going back to your question, yes, so I don't know in myself what I would really like to see because I like all the different actors for whatever they bring to the table as James Bond. You're picked for a reason. So and you're working, yeah, so whatever I've seen a Bond I've liked, but it would be nice. I want to see Ian Fleming's James Bond.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
That's important. That's
Yep.
key. That's
Yeah, so
that's great to
that's
hear.
wonderful. I know he's a very serious actor. Timothy Dalton. Wow, he read all the books. I
Yeah.
wonder if any of the other Bond actors have. That's real dedication. I don't
Yes.
really know how many James Bond books he wrote. Like, how many are there?
There's really like 12 and then two short story collections, I think.
That's
So
it.
the short story collections, they use some of the stuff in some of the movies. Like License to Kill used a few things from one of the short stories. But so they ran out of his stuff kind of early, really. But
Oh, right.
they still can, like you're saying, take the essence of what Bond was in the Fleming novels and make that the Bond on screen for Bond 26. I like that idea. Some people want it to be funnier. They want it to be more like a Roger Moore Bond or whatever.
So
So,
I like that kind of Bond. I did. You know,
yeah.
I grew up with that and being British, I liked a little bit of I also like I was a child also. So so those characters were larger than life and Jaws, the character
Yes.
who I met and I
Did
worked
you?
I
Richard
met him.
Keough, yeah.
I did a convention with him in Las Vegas. It was just me and him at some truck show. And so I
Uh,
stayed with him for 2 days. And he gave me all these beautiful signed pictures.
Everybody says he was a really nice guy too, Richard
He
Keough.
was so nice. And what was
Yeah.
great about him, he was full of stories. He told me so many, so many, so many, so many stories. Like so many stories that he must obviously tell them again and again because it was so one thing I really remember, oh, I love because Jaws was in 2 movies, and I love
Yes.
the scene of him in the cable car. That was amazing. Because when you're like a 10-year-old kid watching it, it's like a character from like a Marvel, like Superman or something. Like it's just a larger than life character.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so nice, and I remember that. And then I always remember for some reason at the end, he gets together with this. He's so
With
big
Dolly.
with this
Yeah.
tiny, pretty little
Yes.
lady, and I just thought it was so cute and sweet.
Okay, here's your trivia question.
Yeah.
Does she have braces?
Mm.
They get up, they get when they get together, he smiles big and then she smiles back. Is she wearing braces?
Yes.
Nope.
No.
So many people think yes.
Everybody thinks she does. It's one of those Mandela effect
we
things.
we
Oh,
knew
that's
James
so
Bond.
weird. So Richard
Yeah.
Gill actually told me, and
Yeah.
you may know this, that Cubby Broccoli, it was written in the script that he gets together at the end with someone that is like him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that.
Oh no,
No, I had not heard
tell
that.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's
with the
good.
same condition. I don't, yeah, like maybe with the same, but like, yeah, so they were going to look for an actor that was big, like an actress like him. And that's who he got together with. And he said it really bothered him the whole time. So when he had a moment with Cubby Broccoli, he said, you know what? I don't want to be with this is not I don't think this is good for the role. My idea of being with somebody is somebody that's petite and different from me and blonde, perhaps. That's what he said to Cubby. And he was like, okay, let's go with that. And it worked. It's so much
Yeah,
better, isn't it? Yes,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he
I,
told me
I
the
think
idea.
wasn't he married? I think his wife was
So his
like that.
wife
No?
looks just like that. She's
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
lovely, beautiful, petite little blonde-haired lady. She's
Yeah.
gorgeous. She's lovely and so sweet. He was so nice.
yeah. Oh,
Really,
that's good.
really was wonderful.
That's
I have a wonderful picture of me and him together. I'm sitting on his lap in it. I
Oh,
need to put it on I call this my Bond woman, Bond girl wall.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's
That's
awesome. All
fantastic.
right, so can we shift gears here and talk a little
Yeah.
bit about some of the other work you've done?
Yeah,
And you
sure.
got your big
It's not as
break.
exciting to talk about. Well, I suppose
Yeah.
he could.
Yeah. But I want to hear things like you played Nina in Sci-Fi. Now,
Mhm.
for the American audience, that was kind of like the Elvira character that Cassandra Peterson did
Yeah.
here in the U.S. playing
Yes,
that
it
Elvira.
was.
And
Uh-huh.
how'd that thing come about for you? And it seemed like you had fun with it,
You did it for a while.
Yeah, so that was before James Bond. It was my
right?
first regular TV job. Like I signed a contract to do many seasons with the Sci-Fi Network channel. And it was I loved it so much. My background is theater, so I could be very theatrical with
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
I played a horror hostess.
Right?
And I could be sexy, I could be
You were.
okay. All sorts of things with it. I could be
Not
dark.
hard for you.
No, I could be funny with it too. I
Yeah.
love comedy. I love doing comedy. It's so that's my forte actually. So suddenly I was being this sexy, sassy kind of female role that was funny too, and the two together go so well if you can get it right. And the show was really, really popular. I was so chuffed. They would send me the ratings on the Monday morning, and it was the most watched slot on the Sci-Fi Channel at the
Wow.
time. Yeah.
That's
There you
awesome.
go.
And that feeling to see it grow. By the way, when my first opening for the show, but I think this is normal. They got so many complaints.
Oh, yeah.
Why did you change the horror host? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
We
Well,
don't
you were
like
the third host, right?
Yeah, and I just
Yeah.
remember being like really upset. And I was like, why are they even telling me this? Just like, let's just, once this is done, that's it. I'll move on. I remember being told this after the week, the ratings weren't very good. They didn't really like, and I just was like, oh God, why am I being told this? And it's really, really crushing. By the way, it's really hard being an actor and having to deal with rejection from
Yeah.
casting directors, from people, and there's so many up and downs. You just have to learn how to deal with it. Anyway, within like by week 4, after everybody came to terms with the change, people don't like change. It's like,
Right.
Generally not.
even on social media, if something changes or an icon or something, you're like, no. Or if Twitter becomes, it's like, oh God, I can't stand this change. Right, we can't deal with it, can we? And then after a while, we get used to it. So after a while, they got used to me, and then the ratings did so well, and I
Yeah, you
remember.
seem to be having a good time with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really did. And then I'd go in once a month to sign fan mail, and I couldn't believe I was signing fan mail. Yeah, so that was actually my first intro to fans of something I was doing. So that was
Yeah. Yeah. And how
yeah.
long you did it for what?
Two or
How
three
long?
seasons, right?
Yeah, two or
Yeah,
three seasons.
I did it for 2.5 years, and it was in total, I think it was 6 seasons.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's fantastic.
we filmed it three or four, oh, maybe it was more, maybe it was 7, 3 or 4 times a year. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did it every, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then it came to an end because funding was cut. And literally as it was coming to an end, and I knew it was coming, and I was filming my last season, that's when I got cast as James Bond.
Nice.
Wow.
James Bond movie.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so that was good.
It's
What a
great when it
great
works
end for
out
that,
like
huh?
that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So
Awesome.
I want to ask you another question about another movie you did.
Yes.
you were in a movie called The Tournament, and you had, I'll say, an impactful role. At least with the telephone booth, it was an impactful role. And your Jeep rolls over.
Yes.
Okay.
I, by the way, drive that Jeep.
Okay. That was going to be, I was
Wow.
going to ask you that. Was
Okay.
that really, because you seemed to
I
be
really
behind the
do.
wheel and as that thing was spinning. And then it looked to
Yeah,
me like you had blue eyes in that.
I do
Did,
have blue eyes, and I still have the blue contacts.
okay. So it was
There you
contacts.
go.
All right.
Yeah, they were contacts.
Okay. Phew. You solved the mystery for me there. Thank you.
Yes. So what happened in that movie? So this was another case of. So I was actually the lead originally in that movie. I did the short film for the promotion. They were a bunch of very nice young men, same age as me, from Manchester. They contacted my agent for some reason and said, would this was after James Bond,
Mhm.
actually. They said, would Rachel be interested in working with us on a promo? They had other great actors attached to this trailer, and it paid minimal. It wasn't very much, but they had such good actors attached that I was like, yeah, I really want to work with these other actors.
Yeah.
And director showreel was amazing. He was this young aspiring director, amazing showreel. Went up to Manchester, filmed it over like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. They brought it to the Cannes Film Festival that year. I was on like the poster with the other actors too.
Ah.
I was the lead in that. And they were hoping for it to be picked up by somebody. Anyway, it got picked up by the Weinstein Company. Harvey Weinstein
Mhm.
picked it up. And he wanted to recast the entire cast. He said, we
Oh.
don't want British actors, we need American actors. So they put
Uh,
American actors in it, and the director, bless him, and the producer, the gang from Manchester, they begged production, we work with these actors, and I think we might have worked on it for free. I think we did. I think that was the thing. They said we really have to put each actor that we used in the trailer in the movie. They insisted on it. So when I got the call, it was like, Rachel, we've got great news for you. We got funding for the movie, and it's like major budget. And guess what? It's with a Hollywood production company and blah blah blah. But unfortunately, we can't put you as the lead anymore because they want to put American actors in it. But we are going to give you a role. The only thing is you have to dye your hair blonde and have blue eyes because you can't look anything like the lead character. Because the lead character is Kelly Hugh,
Yeah.
yeah.
beautiful um actress. She's done a few movies actually. She was an X-Men, one of the X-Men movies. So she's the lead character, and we are a little similar, dark hair, straight. She's Asian, I'm mixed Asian. So I had to dye my hair blonde and
Mhm.
have blue eyes, and that was the deal. And we filmed it in Bulgaria.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
That's
Wow.
that's how that came about.
okay.
Yes. And what's funny is the director, for some reason, because in the original promo, the lead character, her weapon is nunchuckers.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the original promo, I'm using nunchuckers and beating people up. For some reason, the director thought I was a professional stunt woman.
Ah.
In the scene, he said, "Oh no, Rachel can drive this car, don't worry." And he was like, "No, you can spin around." And so I was like, "Really?" And so I was spinning around the car. I know how to do that stuff. Like, I used to be a bit of a tomboy, so I always used to like drive fast cars and like do stuff like that. Anyway, you didn't have to be a tomboy to be able to do that anyway. But anyway, it wasn't until years later we met up, and for some reason, it came up. He asked me, "Oh, how's the stunt work going?" I said, "What stunt work?" He said, you did on the side like professional stunt work. I said, no. I said, "But you did the stunts. What I did in that movie wasn't allowed, I don't think."
Oh, geez.
No,
Oh.
he thought for some reason I was a professional stunt person.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
It didn't matter anyway.
yeah.
So
That's good.
anyway, it was fine. I mean, nothing would have happened. I,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like it was an old car and it didn't matter. It crashed in anyway.
Well, you were okay. That's the important thing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I loved it.
Yeah. And then we get the
Yeah.
close up of your face with the blue eyes, and it was just like my head exploded.
I look completely different, don't I?
Yes. The
You
hair,
think,
the dyeing of the hair, you see that all the time. You don't see the contacts as often. So
do you think I look Caucasian
a
enough?
little bit, yeah. I think
Or
so.
maybe I look like more like a European. I don't, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
apparently I did my DNA, about
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, did you?
I am 16% Scandinavian.
Wow.
Wow.
Isn't that
No
nuts?
kidding.
That's quite high of
That
all the
is.
things that were in there. Yeah, so that we assume it's got something to do with my grandmother who was English, whose mother came from Scotland,
Hmm.
because a
Okay.
lot of Scottish people, you can see where it comes from because
Yeah.
they have like Scandinavian, like Norwegian and Swedish, me. That's in my English, isn't that funny?
That
See,
is.
that is really, really high.
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah.
as you're raising your daughter, right?
Yes.
You've been an actor. You've done the travel guides. You do all the charity stuff. Is there? Do you have like a plan for how you want to guide her as to anything that you want to make sure, you don't have to go do this as your career, but that you want to make sure she stays up with?
It's really funny. She's similar to me in some ways, but where her talents lie, it's not the things that I ever did or
Okay.
my husband. She was swimming before she was two. She's a really good swimmer. Yeah, she can swim like 2 laps and she's really good in gymnastics. These are things
Wow.
I never did. So obviously these are like she's a nursery. So I'm
Hmm.
not sure what her strengths are really at school. Like I was really into crafts and art. She's not
Okay.
really into that at all. So all the things that, oh, I'm gonna do this with her, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Things change.
Things
Yeah.
things that they don't exist in my family or my husband. So it's really odd. So I have no idea. That's to answer your question. And it's funny because I used to think, oh, I'm going to teach her to do this. And if she's interested in like performing, then she can do this or that, or I'll take her to ballet class. No, she's going to end up going to gymnastics class. And I've
Okay.
taken her to a couple of swimming classes too. But
Yeah.
it's really odd. So now I'm like, I'm not thinking of anything, and we'll just see where she's completely different to
Yeah.
so
It's always funny when you
quite funny.
discover that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's to answer your question. I have no idea.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you wish someone would have asked you a question that they never asked?
oh, what do you mean? Like in an interview?
Interview.
Yeah.
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 Oh gosh, that's the question. No.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
never
great.
Oh gosh, that's so hard. I can't think of that off the bat.
Okay.
There's so many questions. No, I've been asked so many.
Yeah. There we go.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We should let people know about your charity stuff again. I know you wrote a book, Making a Difference,
Oh, yeah, that was
and
a long time ago.
a long time ago, but that's okay. And now you're still doing your charity work. And is there a way for people to participate in helping with that? You have a website? Is there a website that people can go
Um,
to?
I don't really push all that so much.
Well,
No,
we'd like people
I
to
don't really
have an
ask.
opportunity.
I don't, it's funny, yeah, that's very kind. Um, I suppose, I'm in the process of like redoing my website. So my website's pretty old. It
Okay.
needs to be revamped. I've got loads of new content that needs to be on it. But if you want to support or anything, if you want to have a signed picture, get in touch with me, go to my website.
And what is your website that they could go to?
Oh, it's rachelgrant.com.
There you go.
And some people just contact me on Facebook or Instagram. That's it. But I did have actually one talking about you mentioned, is there one question?
Yes.
I did have a little topic. So I know one of the things we spoke about, or you'd mentioned like the evolution of the Bond girl and Bond woman, how they've been like depicted as sex symbols and what have you, or in a bikinis or lying in bed with
Yeah.
Bond.
Yes.
Guess what? James Bond is too. When I was little, I wasn't thinking, oh, she's naked. I was thinking, oh my God, he's got his top off. I actually thought really good looking. Yeah, I used to think Roger Moore's he's really dashing. He's like way older. I'm not looking at him like in those ways. But James Bond always has his top off, doesn't he? Is he always topless in all his movies? He is a sex symbol. He's always
Yes, he is.
right. And he has tiny little speedos, and he's always in shorts and things like that. So, but men don't complain about it, I suppose.
Women are complaining, I don't think, are they?
And then I remember seeing an article once about the ever-changing chest of James Bond. You've got and I was like, oh yeah, he always has his top off, right? I forgot about that. And because Sean Connery like had his hair on, and now it's like all clean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So my scene with Pierce Brosnan, oh, I should have mentioned this before. It was written in the script that he was shirtless.
Yes.
He shaved himself. And so I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be Pierce Brosnan. He's going to have no top on. And so my mother used to watch Remington Steele. And that was another Remington Steele while it was growing up, that had Pierce Brosnan in it. And he was, I remember thinking, oh, he's really nice looking.
Yeah.
And so I was like, thinking I'm going to blush. He's going to have no top on. But obviously, as an actor, you're very professional when it comes to it. You're not thinking anything like that. But anyway, he didn't have his top on in the end because he wore some like promotional shirt or something.
Yeah, he had the Briani shirts there.
Yeah, but he did appear when he comes out of the water and he walks into the hotel in the lobby.
Yes.
He's topless then, isn't he?
He has an open shirt on, yeah.
Oh, so he's not topless.
Yeah. But you can see his chest. You can see
his chest.
Right, that's right. Okay. Yeah, he shows quite a bit. He's always like right. So yes. Anyway,
That's awesome.
that's why I threw that one in. You would come away from Bond movies thinking he's always got his clothes off, not thinking about the women, but more about him.
But good to get that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, different. Perspective's everything, isn't it? No, but I always came away from a Bond movie having mostly a good impression of a woman being strong. But I'm sure if I were to look back and watch many of them now, I'd see there's some funny lines and what have you. But it's the time we've evolved and moved on to, and hopefully we can see like a more of an Ian Fleming James Bond one day.
There you go. There you go.
Great.
Well, that's a good time to wrap this up. This is fantastic.
It's
Rachel, we can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you
This
so
is just
much.
this is just like talking to an old friend for a long time. You're just terrific.
It's so nice to meet you here again, and I'm sure we shall meet again at some point.
Yes,
I'm looking forward to
I
it.
hope so. I hope we do, and I hope so soon. So that's fantastic. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much again.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you.
Pleasure to talk with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
She is amazing.
Yeah.
Holy God.
You talk about the Energizer Bunny.
This has been Dan.
And Tom.
From SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. We were thrilled to have Rachel Grant with us today. Thanks for listening to us. We appreciate you spending time with us. Thanks.